Go through the research and design consideration for each interface and consider whether they are relevant for the game setting and what consideration they raise. For the wearable interface, issues to do with comfort and hygiene are important when designing the game. Describe a hypothetical scenario of how the game would be played for each of the three interfaces. VR, voice, air-based gestures will be very different ways of playing the current version of the Snake game. I think the way the game will be played in VR will be to move your head and the snake would move in the direction. I think people will be more accurate with timing since they would see a physical wall in front of them and would not want to smack into a wall. The issue with this game would be motion sickness since you would not be able to control the snake's movement and it will gradually get faster and faster, causing the player to feel quiet motion sick. Voice command would consist of saying the direction you would want the snake to move. This would be quite good for people with physical disabilities, allowing them to try and play the game with their voice. The only downside to this design would be if the voice recognition software misheard the user, then it's likely not to do the right thing. Air-based gesture could be used to control the snake direction by waving the player's arms in a center direction. If you would want to turn right, then wave out your right arm and wave your left arm for the left direction. This will not be too difficult to set up or design, but it will be inconvenient for players and probably at a bit frustrating having to wave their arms around constantly. Consider specific design issues that will need to be addressed. For example, for the shareable surface, would it best to have a tabletop or wall-based surface? For the VR version, once again, motion sickness will be a big design issue. You will need to actually change the game's mechanics to make it less likely to encourage motion sickness. How loud you would have to be for the game to register a direction should be considered. If the player has to shout, then it will get annoying and could hurt the player's voice. But considering at the same time, if the game registered after quiet sound, the game could be sensitive and react without the player saying the correct word. Maybe using just hand gesture would be better for this game, rather than moving your whole arm. This way, small flicks and action could be registered to move the character, making it easier on the player. How will the user interact with the game elements for each of the different interfaces by using a pen, fingertips, voice, or other input device? For the VR, the player would look at the settings and option for a period of time, which activate the game. Then would see the GUI float in front while they move around in the virtual world. For the voice, you would say the words in the menu to go to the specific option. This would allow navigating the menus without any physical control for the game. For movement, the player would hover their hand over any interface option to go to it. This one again allows player to navigate without any physical controls. How do you turn a single player game into a multiple player one? Well, for voice commands, multiplayer in the same room would be possible since the device would react to anyone saying the words left or right. And for the other two, it would really be possible to move someone else's snake since the person controlling will be connected to the game. Compare the pros and cons of designing the game using the three different interfaces with respect to how it is played on the smartphone. The pros to playing on any of the other device will make the game a little more interesting in how to play. For example, the VR you would actually see the walls coming closer to you and need to move your head quickly not to ram right into it. Using voice will be similar to playing the normal game, but eventually you will be saying which ways to go as quickly as you could, which could make people confused when saying which way to go, but that will be a part of the challenge of playing. The hand gesture will just be like playing the normal game but without physically touching anything. The game would need to change much to fit it since the control would work the same as the normal game. One of the main cons of the voice is designing the controls, whether a user should say up, down, left, and right, or just left and right to control the snake. I could imagine that would confuse some people, since if the snake is looking down and you say left, the snake might turn his left rather than the left the user is looking. But giving the player too many things to say might confuse him. The VR cone would be motion sickness since too much rapid movement without any of their control messes with people's head. The gesture control biggest flaw is knowing how obvious the gesture need to be, and holding your hand up for a long time could be uncomfortable for the player. If they have to hold their hands out of the computer to say, after a while the player's arms would start to ache and make the experience less enjoyable.